A Christmas Catastrophe. Dad, how long is the flight to South Korea? And how long is the connecting flight to Vietnam? Asked my older sister Danielle enthusiastically. It was 6 o'clock in the morning on December 18th, 2017, and my brothers, sister, mom, dad, and I were headed to Hue, Vietnam for our yearly family vacation. As we dragged our overflowing suitcases through the chilly Atlanta air, my two older brothers, David and Dennis, debated over who deserved the esteemed window seat, and my parents eagerly discussed the warm weather in Vietnam. I turned to my sister as she flashed me a smile. Ever since she moved into her college dorm last August, we had not had a chance to spend quality time together, but we were finally going to have a chance to reconnect during this wonderful trip. I felt restless as we walked from my mom's minivan to the automatic doors of the Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. But when we entered the massive building, warm air calmed my fragile nerves. I breathed a jubilant sigh of relief as I remembered that I would be free from high school for 2 whole weeks. Winter break is finally here, I thought gleefully. This is going to be the best vacation ever. Even though my joy for winter break felt as huge as an airplane, it vanished quickly when I saw an unusually large amount of people in the airport. Some travelers were sound asleep on the ground with their possessions strewn across the floor, while others stood in lines with nasty expressions on their faces. Glad we got here early, David said sarcastically. Why are the lines so long, Scott? My mom asked my dad worriedly. With a furrowed brow, my dad shrugged his shoulders. Let me find out what's going on, okay? He said. Usually, baggage check lines in the Atlanta airport are no more than 10 people deep, but today, something was clearly different. Within 10 minutes of seeing the abundance of travelers, my dad had run from one Delta employee to another, trying to discern why so many people were in the airport. He approached our family with a concerned expression and told us that the power had been out. It had been pitch black for over 11 hours and light was only restored 1 hour ago. Because of this calamity, hundreds of flights were being delayed, lines were hours long, and people were stranded away from their loved ones. So, what do we do now? I asked curiously. Are we safe? What caused this outage? Was it a terrorist attack? Shrugging, my dad replied, they don't know what caused it yet. But if it wasn't safe to be here, we wouldn't be here. Our flight hasn't been delayed or canceled yet, so let's just get in line and hope for the best. We picked up our fat bags and turned to look for the end of the line, but it was nowhere in sight. Moving one foot in front of the other, we finally reached the end of the baggage check line after 10 minutes. It was marked with bright yellow traffic cones that directed the hundreds of agitated travelers. It looked like controlled chaos. I guess this is where we wait, said my dad, sounding hopeless. This line was at least 100 people deep, and there were no more than 6 meager employees helping to move it along. The wretched power outage had broken the electricity at the airport and my holiday cheer. At that moment, I realized we'd be standing in this line for hours. Dropping my bag, I blinked stinging tears from my eyes. We're never going to catch this flight, I thought hopelessly. 4 hours later, we were less than halfway through the monstrous line. We were lucky that our flight had been delayed until 6 p.m., but waiting in line felt like pure torture. My back was sore from sitting on the ground for so long, and my head was throbbing from the garrulous passengers' chatter echoing off the massive airport walls. We're never going to make it to the front, I complained. Yeah, this is the worst vacation ever, my sister agreed. Our cheery holiday spirits were gone, and now we were all as grouchy as the Grinch on Christmas morning. My family's agitated tones and sour expressions made it feel like this horror story would never end. So much for a fun family trip, I thought again. And at that moment, my sister announced that she desperately needed caffeine, so she decided to excuse herself and go buy a drink. Bring me something, my dad shouted as my sister dragged her feet across the dirty floor. Yeah, she moaned. 10 minutes later, she reappeared with a cheery smile on her face. Hey, she shouted with 6 full Starbucks double chocolate chip frappuccinos in her arms. The frappuccino was our family's favorite drink. Lit, my brother said, running to grab one from her hands. Passing out the drinks, Danielle turned to my mom and winked. Together, they took their straws and started unwrapping the green paper to make a shotgun. 1, 2, 3, they yelled as they blew the crisp paper across the room and into my dad's face. You're on, he yelled back. Before I knew it, a battle had erupted. My family was making a loud scene as we blew wrappers through the air and laughed loudly. When my brother opened the cap of his drink to slurp the creamy white whipped cream off the top, I pushed his nose into the frosty foam. Laughing, he wiped it off and dragged it across my clean sweater. We were in a full-on war now. We were all chuckling and chugging our sweet-smelling drinks as the passengers around us stared. They were obviously jealous of our family's fun, but we made a few of the angry travelers smile. From that moment on, our frowns, groans, and moans had disappeared. Our war cries turned into joking, and soon we were talking and laughing about our previous vacation mishaps. "Remember that time Diana dropped her phone in front of a wild lion in Africa?" my sister exclaimed. "Oh yeah," I remembered as I let out a laugh and blurted, "Remember that time you got pushed off the bungee jumping platform in Australia because you were too afraid to jump?" My family burst into a joyous laughter. 2.5 hours later, we were still grinning ear to ear as we stood at the front of the massive baggage check line. Our family's positive attitude made the line seem a million times shorter. "Next!" a woman yelled. "That's us!" my dad exclaimed. We kept chatting as we moved our luggage to the scales, and 5 minutes later, we were done waiting in the crazy line. Luckily, security was much more efficient than baggage check, and we made it through the heavy-duty scanners in no time. As we moved towards our gate with happy hearts and eager anticipation, my brother threw his arm around my shoulder and chuckled once again. 1 hour later, we sat on the enormous plane heading to South Korea. I smiled as I laid my head on my sister's arm and closed my eyes to try and catch some sleep. How did I get so lucky to have this family, I thought. I am so fortunate to have a family that loves each other and can make any situation memorable. As I drifted off into a deep sleep, my heart felt warm and full. "Let the vacation begin," I heard my mom whisper to my dad. "Let the vacation begin," I thought happily.